When asked directly about alien symbols during the 2025 congressional hearing, Pentagon officials gave responses that revealed more than they intended. They confirmed that engraved markings on UAPs have been documented and studied by government linguists for years. The most telling moment came when they refused to discuss the meaning of these symbols in public session, citing classification levels that had never been mentioned before. Former intelligence officials are now breaking their silence about what the government really knows about alien communication systems. What they're revealing contradicts decades of official denials and shows a pattern of systematic study that goes back further than anyone imagined. The March hearing became the moment when careful government language finally cracked under direct questioning. The moment Pentagon officials couldn't deny. Representative Johnson leaned forward in his chair during the July 2023 House Oversight hearing, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. Deputy Secretary Morrison, I'm going to ask you a direct question about the markings found on recovered UAP materials. Are you aware of any documentation regarding symbols or script-like engravings on these craft? The question hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. Morrison's face went rigid, his eyes darting to the legal counsel seated behind him. His colleague, Assistant Secretary Williams, shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hands clasping and unclasping the folder in front of her. The silence stretched for nearly 15 seconds before Morrison finally spoke. Congressman, I can confirm that our documentation protocols include the recording of all physical characteristics observed on recovered materials. His voice carried a careful precision that everyone in the room recognized. Johnson pressed further. That's not what I asked. Are there symbols or markings that appear to be some form of script or language on these craft? Williams jumped in before Morrison could respond. Representative Johnson, we have documented various markings and configurations on materials under our analysis. Some of these markings have required specialized interpretation. The word choice was deliberate and revealing. They didn't say unusual patterns or manufacturing marks. They said specialized interpretation. Morrison added, we have linguistic specialists who have been consulted on certain materials in our possession. The admission sent ripples through the committee room. For the first time in decades of UAP hearings, Pentagon officials had acknowledged that government linguists were actively studying what could only be described as engraved markings on recovered craft. Johnson wasn't finished. Deputy Secretary, when you say specialized interpretation, are you referring to attempts to decode what might be non-human communication? Morrison's response came faster this time, but his discomfort was obvious. Congressman, I cannot discuss the specific nature of our analysis methods or findings in this setting due to classification requirements. Williams nodded in agreement, adding, what I can say is that our documentation standards have evolved significantly over the past several years to capture all observable characteristics. The careful phrasing revealed everything they were trying to hide. Previous Pentagon officials had flatly denied the existence of recovered craft altogether. These officials weren't denying anything. They were confirming that materials existed, that markings had been found, and that linguists were studying them. The shift in language represented a fundamental change in official position. Something had forced their hand. Committee member Representative Davis picked up the thread. Are you telling us that the United States government has been employing linguists to study what you believe might be alien script? Morrison's jaw tightened. Representative Davis, we employ various specialists to analyze materials of unknown origin. This includes individuals with expertise in symbol systems and pattern recognition. The admission was stunning. They had just confirmed that unknown materials with symbol systems were being analyzed by pattern recognition experts. Williams tried to regain control of the narrative. I want to emphasize that our analysis procedures are thorough and scientific. We don't make assumptions about the origin or meaning of any markings we document. But her clarification only made things worse. She had just confirmed that they were analyzing markings for meaning, which implied the markings were sophisticated enough to potentially contain information. The body language told the complete story. Morrison kept glancing at his notes, not reading from them but clearly seeking comfort from their presence. Williams maintained eye contact with the committee members, but her blinking rate had increased dramatically. Both officials displayed the classic signs of people trying to navigate between truth and classified information. Their discomfort wasn't about being unprepared. It was about being caught between congressional demands for transparency and security protocols that prohibited them from revealing what they actually knew. Representative Chen pressed the officials further. Deputy Secretary Morrison, you mentioned that documentation protocols have evolved. Does this mean that symbol documentation is now standard procedure for UAP investigations? Morrison's response came after another pause. Our investigation protocols are comprehensive and include documentation of all physical characteristics, including surface features and any markings present on materials. He had just confirmed that symbol documentation was now standard procedure. The implications were staggering. If symbol documentation was standard procedure, it meant that symbols were being found regularly enough to warrant formal protocols. Williams attempted damage control. I should clarify that we document everything as a matter of scientific rigor, not because we expect to find specific types of markings. But her clarification revealed even more. Scientific rigor suggested they were treating these markings as potentially significant rather than dismissing them as random scratches or manufacturing artifacts. The hearing marked a complete departure from previous Pentagon responses. In earlier sessions, officials had consistently denied the existence of recovered materials entirely. Now they were acknowledging materials, markings, linguistic analysis, and specialized interpretation protocols. The shift represented either a policy change or a situation where continued denial had become impossible. Morrison's final statement on the topic was perhaps the most revealing. Congressman, I want to assure this committee that any materials in our possession are being analyzed with the highest levels of scientific and linguistic expertise available. The phrase, linguistic expertise, confirmed that the markings were complex enough to require actual linguists rather than just materials analysts or engineers. The hearing had produced something unprecedented in UAP disclosure history. Pentagon officials had admitted that recovered craft contained symbols requiring linguistic analysis. They had confirmed that government linguists were actively studying these symbols. They had acknowledged that specialized interpretation was needed to understand the markings. Most significantly, they had revealed that symbol documentation was now standard procedure for UAP investigations. The transformation in official language was impossible to ignore. Where previous officials had offered blanket denials, these officials offered careful confirmations hedged with classification concerns. The change suggested that the government's position on UAP materials had shifted from denial to acknowledgement, even if full disclosure remained restricted by security protocols. The July hearing would be remembered as the moment when Pentagon officials could no longer maintain complete silence about engraved markings on recovered materials. Their careful admissions had opened a door that couldn't be closed, confirming that the government possessed physical evidence requiring linguistic analysis. But their refusal to discuss classification-protected findings left crucial questions unanswered, creating a vacuum that others would soon feel compelled to fill. Former intelligence officials break their silence. Within weeks of those uncomfortable admissions, former intelligence officials started coming forward with information that filled in the blanks left by official testimony. These weren't random whistleblowers looking for attention. These were career professionals who had spent decades working in the shadows of America's most classified programs. Sarah Chen broke her silence first. The former DIA analyst had spent 12 years reviewing intelligence reports that crossed her desk at the Defense Intelligence Agency. In April 2025, she sat down for an interview that would change everything. Chen described classified reports from the 1990s that detailed simple analysis on recovered materials. She remembered specific case files that documented attempts to categorize different types of markings found on craft retrieved from various locations. The reports weren't speculation or theory. They were operational documents that treated alien script as an established reality requiring systematic study. Chen's account was specific and detailed. She described seeing photographs of symbols that appeared to be etched or molded into metal surfaces using unknown techniques. The reports she reviewed contained measurements, spectroscopic analysis, and attempts to categorize the symbols by complexity and frequency. She remembered one particular document from 1997 that discussed the discovery of identical symbols on craft recovered 3 years apart from different geographic locations. The implication was clear. These weren't random markings but consistent communication elements being used across different incidents. The personal cost of Chen's revelation became apparent immediately. Her security clearance was suspended pending investigation. Legal challenges followed as government attorneys argued she had violated her oath of secrecy. But Chen pressed forward, stating that the public deserved to know what their government had been hiding for decades. Her willingness to face these consequences gave weight to her testimony and encouraged others to speak out. Retired Air Force Colonel Martinez emerged as the next major voice. His revelation was even more explosive than Chen's. Martinez had overseen what he called non-conventional communication systems analysis during his tenure from 2005 to 2018. He described a dedicated team of linguists and cryptographers who worked exclusively on what they internally referred to as anomalous symbolic material. The team wasn't large, maybe 8 to 10 specialists at any given time, but they were highly trained and had access to the most advanced analytical tools available. Martinez provided details about the team's operations that Pentagon officials had carefully avoided mentioning. The Linguists worked in a secure facility that required special clearances beyond typical top-secret classification. They had access to high-resolution imagery, material samples, and 3D scanning technology that allowed them to analyze symbols from multiple angles and perspectives. Martinez described the team's frustration with their inability to make meaningful progress despite years of effort and significant resource investment. The colonel's account revealed the scope of the government's commitment to understanding these symbols. Millions of dollars had been spent on specialized equipment, expert consultants, and research partnerships with universities. The fact that such resources were being devoted to symbol analysis demonstrated that the government took these markings seriously as genuine communication rather than random surface features or manufacturing artifacts. Dr. Williams, the former NSA cryptographer, provided the most technical perspective on the government's decoding efforts. Her background in breaking enemy codes and analyzing foreign communication systems made her uniquely qualified to assess the alien symbols. Williams described her work from 2010 to 2020, focusing specifically on recurring symbol patterns that appeared across multiple incidents. She had applied traditional cryptographic methods, frequency analysis, and pattern recognition algorithms to the symbol sets provided by other agencies. Williams's testimony revealed the systematic approach the government had taken to understanding these markings. She described databases containing thousands of symbol variants, statistical analysis of symbol frequency and placement, and attempts to correlate symbols with craft capabilities or flight characteristics. The NSA had even developed specialized software to assist in pattern recognition and potential decoding efforts. Williams made it clear that these weren't casual observations but serious scientific attempts to crack what appeared to be a structured communication system. The timing of these revelations in 2025 wasn't coincidental. All three officials cited the same factors that motivated their decision to speak publicly. The Pentagon's admissions during the July hearing had created an opening that hadn't existed before. For the first time, government officials had acknowledged that symbol analysis was happening, which gave former officials cover to discuss their own experiences without completely violating classification protocols. Despite working in different agencies and time periods, the consistency in their accounts was remarkable. All three described similar frustrations with the complexity of the symbols and the inability to make meaningful progress using conventional methods. They all mentioned the systematic nature of the markings and the government's belief that they represented genuine communication rather than random features. Their testimonies aligned on key details about the scope of government knowledge and the resources devoted to understanding these symbols. The common thread running through all their accounts was government frustration with decoding progress. Williams described the symbols as resistant to conventional cryptographic analysis. Martinez mentioned that his team had exhausted traditional linguistic approaches without success. Chen remembered reports that expressed concern about the lack of progress despite years of effort. This frustration suggested that the symbols represented a level of sophistication that exceeded current human understanding of communication systems. Their revelations filled critical gaps in the official Pentagon narrative. While government officials had admitted that linguistic analysis was occurring, they hadn't revealed the scale of the effort or the resources committed to it. The former officials' accounts showed that symbol analysis wasn't a minor side project but a major classified program involving multiple agencies and significant investment over decades. These officials' willingness to speak out despite personal consequences provided crucial context for understanding the scope of government knowledge about alien communication systems. Their accounts transformed the Pentagon's careful admissions from bureaucratic hedging into confirmation of decades-long classified programs dedicated to studying evidence of non-human intelligence. But their testimonies also revealed how much remained hidden behind classification barriers, suggesting that official documents might contain even more detailed information about these programs than anyone had previously imagined. The classified documents that changed everything. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. 3 separate FOIA lawsuits filed in late 2024 had been working their way through federal court when the Pentagon's July admissions changed everything. Government attorneys could no longer argue that these documents didn't exist or that their release would compromise national security by revealing capabilities that officials had already acknowledged publicly. The legal pressure became impossible to resist when Judge Patricia Hendricks ruled in February 2025 that the government's own admissions had waived their classification claims for basic acknowledgement of symbol analysis programs. The first batch of documents released in early March revealed the existence of Project Rosetta, a classified initiative that had been running since 1985. The project file showed systematic attempts to decode what internal documents consistently referred to as non-human symbolic communication systems. The scope was far beyond what anyone had imagined. Project Rosetta maintained detailed catalogs of symbols found on recovered materials, employed teams of linguists and cryptographers, and had consumed over $40 million in black budget funding across 4 decades. The Project Rosetta files contained operational procedures that treated alien script as an established reality requiring systematic study. Document PRJRST001 outlined collection protocols for symbol documentation, including high-resolution photography, 3D scanning, and spectroscopic analysis of marking areas. The procedures assumed that symbols would be found regularly enough to warrant standardized documentation methods. Collection teams were instructed to pay particular attention to symbol placement, size variations, and any correlation with craft structural features. A 1987 memo from Project Rosetta's director described recurring symbolic patterns that appeared across multiple recovered craft. The memo documented identical symbols found on materials retrieved from incidents in Nevada, New Mexico, and Montana between 1983 and 1987. The project's linguistic coordinator noted that the consistency of these symbols across different incidents suggested intentional communication rather than random surface features. She recommended expanding the project's scope to include statistical analysis of symbol frequency and placement patterns. The memo revealed that even in the 1980s, government analysts recognized they were dealing with structured communication. The linguistic assessment stated that the symbols showed grammatical consistency and logical placement hierarchies that indicated sophisticated language use. Analysts specifically noted that certain symbols appeared to function as modifiers for other symbols, suggesting a complex grammatical structure that exceeded simple pictographic communication. The 2003 report that established formal protocols for documenting and analyzing non-human markings represented a major evolution in government approach. Document PRJRST156 created the Anomalous Symbolic Material Analysis Protocol, which became the standard for all agencies encountering potential alien script. The protocol required immediate documentation, material sampling when possible, and referral to specialized linguistic analysis teams. The document's classification level was special access required, indicating the highest levels of secrecy. The protocol document revealed that symbols had been appearing on craft recovered across different decades and locations with sufficient frequency to warrant formal procedures. The report cited 43 documented cases of symbolic materials between 1987 and 2003, with incidents spanning from Alaska to Florida. The geographic distribution showed no pattern that corresponded to human population centers or military installations, suggesting the symbols represented non-human activity across broad areas of the United States. Government attempts to correlate symbols with craft capabilities produced some of the most intriguing findings in the declassified files. Document PRJRST203 from 2008 describes statistical analysis showing that craft with more complex symbol arrangements consistently demonstrated superior flight characteristics. The project's technical coordinator noted that craft with 20 or more distinct symbols showed propulsion capabilities that exceeded those with fewer markings. The correlation was strong enough to suggest that symbols might represent functional information rather than decorative elements. The classified assessment that these symbols represented structured communication rather than random markings appeared in multiple documents spanning different time periods. A 2001 analysis concluded that the symbols showed intentional information encoding, based on their consistent appearance, logical placement, and correlation with craft features. The report stated that the probability of these patterns occurring randomly was statistically negligible, providing strong evidence for intentional communication. The analysis included frequency studies that revealed certain symbols appeared significantly more often than others, similar to letter frequency in human languages. Researchers identified what appeared to be root symbols that formed the basis for more complex markings, suggesting a hierarchical structure similar to morphological systems in human languages. The analysis concluded that the symbols represented the most sophisticated non-human communication system ever documented. The revelation about government consultation with ancient language experts and cryptographers appeared in Project Rosetta's 2010 expansion documents. The project had recruited specialists in linear A, Sanskrit, and other ancient undeciphered scripts to assist with analysis. A specialist in ancient Mesopotamian languages was brought in to apply historical decryption methods to the alien symbols. The consultation documents showed that traditional linguistic approaches had been exhausted without success, leading to recommendations for alternative analytical methods. The files revealed that the government had also consulted with NSA cryptographers who specialized in breaking enemy codes. Document PRJRST267 described attempts to apply frequency analysis, pattern recognition, and statistical methods used in traditional cryptography. The results were consistently negative, with analysts concluding that the symbols didn't follow patterns recognizable in human communication systems. This failure led to recommendations for developing new analytical approaches specifically designed for non-human communication. These documents contradicted decades of official statements about the lack of physical evidence for alien visitation. While officials had consistently denied possessing any materials of non-human origin, the Project Rosetta files showed that symbol analysis had been a major classified program for 4 decades. The contradiction was absolute and undeniable. Government officials had been lying about the existence of physical evidence while simultaneously spending millions to analyze that evidence. The scope of documentation revealed in these files was staggering. Project Rosetta maintained over 12,000 photographs of symbols, 3D scans of 847 different markings, and spectroscopic analysis of symbol materials from hundreds of incidents. The database included detailed measurements, placement analysis, and correlation studies that represented the most comprehensive collection of alien communication evidence ever assembled. The project's methodical approach demonstrated the government's serious commitment to understanding these symbols as genuine evidence of non-human intelligence. The declassified Project Rosetta files transformed the UAP disclosure landscape by providing official confirmation that alien script analysis had been a major classified program for decades. The documents showed that the government had known about alien communication systems since the 1980s and had committed substantial resources to understanding them. But the files also revealed something else: the existence of a specialized team of government linguists who had been working on this problem for years. The linguists who tried to crack the code. The team that emerged from these classified programs wasn't your typical government linguistic unit. These specialists had been handpicked from universities, the NSA, and military intelligence to tackle what their supervisors called the most challenging communication problem in human history. The 2020 J. Stratton slide deck, released through FOIA requests, confirmed that specialized analysis teams had been working on symbol interpretation for years. High-resolution images released via the Black Vault and ARO imagery pages clearly showed engraved markings that required expert review, validating the need for dedicated linguistic resources. The linguists discovered immediately that conventional analytical methods failed completely when applied to the alien symbols. Traditional frequency analysis showed patterns that made no sense within human linguistic frameworks. Dr. Richard Hayes, a specialist in computational linguistics, described the symbols as grammatically impossible, according to human language rules. The team tried applying phonetic analysis, morphological breakdown, and syntactic parsing without success. Hayes noted that the symbols seemed to violate basic principles of human communication, including linear progression and hierarchical structure. The team spent months cataloging recurring patterns in the symbol sets. They identified what appeared to be root symbols that formed the basis for more complex markings. These base symbols combined in ways that suggested systematic rules, but the rules didn't match any known linguistic patterns. Dr. Sandra Kim, the team's pattern recognition specialist, found that symbol combinations followed mathematical relationships rather than grammatical ones. The patterns were consistent enough to indicate structured communication, but the structure operated on principles completely foreign to human language systems. The breakthrough came when analysts realized the symbols might represent three-dimensional concepts rather than linear language. Dr. James Peterson had been analyzing symbol placement on curved craft surfaces when he noticed that the markings weren't arranged in straight lines like human writing. Instead, they formed complex geometric patterns that only made sense when viewed from specific angles. He hypothesized that the symbols might encode spatial relationships and three-dimensional information that human languages couldn't express directly. Peterson's three-dimensional theory revolutionized the team's approach. They began analyzing symbols in relation to craft geometry, material properties, and structural features. Their analysis revealed that symbol complexity correlated with craft sophistication. Simpler craft carried basic symbol sets, while more advanced vehicles displayed complex geometric arrangements that suggested multi-layered information encoding. This correlation implied that the symbols weren't just communication but functional elements integrated into craft design. The team's analysis revealed that symbol placement on craft surfaces correlated with specific functions and capabilities. Dr. Lisa Chen, a materials scientist assigned to the project, discovered that symbols appeared most frequently near what appeared to be propulsion systems and navigation equipment. Her analysis showed that symbol areas had different properties than unmarked surfaces, suggesting the markings served functional purposes beyond communication. Chen's work indicated that symbols might be instructions embedded directly into craft structure. Internal memos expressed mounting frustration with the symbol's resistance to conventional decoding methods. Team leaders wrote that they had exhausted traditional linguistic approaches and recommended exploring alternative analytical frameworks. They noted that the symbols seemed designed to resist human comprehension, possibly indicating that they weren't intended for external communication but for internal operational purposes. The team's inability to make progress despite years of effort and substantial resources created tension within the program. The collaboration with computer scientists marked a significant shift in the project's methodology. The team partnered with AI researchers to develop machine learning algorithms specifically designed for pattern recognition in non-human communication systems. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a computer scientist specializing in neural networks, created algorithms that could identify recurring patterns and structural relationships invisible to human analysts. The AI systems processed thousands of symbol combinations looking for mathematical relationships and geometric patterns. The computer analysis produced unexpected results. Rodriguez's algorithms identified recurring mathematical sequences embedded within symbol arrangements. The AI had detected prime number sequences, geometric progressions, and complex mathematical relationships encoded in symbol placement. The discovery suggested that the symbols operated on mathematical principles rather than linguistic ones, supporting Peterson's theory about three-dimensional information encoding. The classified assessment suggesting the symbols might be instructions rather than language emerged from this mathematical analysis. Dr. Rodriguez concluded that the symbols represented operational codes rather than communicative language. His assessment stated that the markings appeared to be functional instructions embedded in craft structure rather than messages intended for external readers. This hypothesis explained why traditional linguistic methods had failed and why symbols correlated with craft capabilities. The instruction theory gained support from additional analysis of symbol placement and craft performance. Teams discovered that craft with specific symbol arrangements consistently demonstrated similar flight characteristics. They documented multiple cases where identical symbols appeared on craft that exhibited matching propulsion signatures and maneuverability patterns. The correlation was too strong to be coincidental, suggesting that symbols directly influenced craft behavior. The team's work led to the development of new analytical approaches specifically designed for non-human communication systems. Dr. Hayes created frameworks that treated symbols as functional codes rather than linguistic elements. These methods incorporated mathematical analysis, geometric pattern recognition, and three-dimensional modeling to understand symbol arrangements. The new approaches yielded more promising results than traditional linguistic methods, though complete decoding remained elusive. The team also developed specialized software that could analyze symbol arrangements in three-dimensional space, accounting for craft geometry and material properties. This software identified patterns that were invisible when symbols were viewed as two-dimensional markings. The three-dimensional analysis revealed that symbols formed complex geometric relationships that suggested sophisticated information encoding systems far beyond human linguistic capabilities. The linguistic team's efforts represented the most serious attempt to understand non-human communication in human history. Their work had consumed substantial black budget funding, as confirmed in congressional testimony. The team had developed new analytical methods, created specialized software, and established theoretical frameworks for understanding three-dimensional information encoding. Their discoveries had revolutionized thinking about non-human intelligence and communication systems. The team's ultimate conclusion was that the symbols represented a form of communication so advanced that human language couldn't adequately describe it. The markings operated on mathematical and geometric principles that exceeded human understanding of information encoding. Their work had proven that non-human intelligence used communication systems far more sophisticated than anything humans had developed. But the true scope of their discoveries would only become clear when the government finally released comprehensive data about how frequently these symbols were actually being encountered. Updated statistics reveal the scope. The Pentagon's 2025 database release provided the first comprehensive look at symbol documentation across military encounters. The numbers show that 847 documented UAP encounters now include reports of visible symbols or markings on observed craft. These aren't speculation or witness misidentification. These are confirmed sightings documented by military personnel, radar operators, and sensor systems that captured clear evidence of symbolic markings on unidentified aerial phenomena. The geographic breakdown reveals patterns that nobody expected. The Southwest United States accounts for 312 of these documented symbol sightings, with Nevada leading at 89 cases, followed by Arizona with 76, and New Mexico with 71. The concentration in these areas correlates with known military installations and testing facilities, but the frequency suggests something beyond random occurrence. The Pacific Northwest shows the second highest concentration with 156 documented cases, primarily in Washington and Oregon. California reported 134 symbol sightings, while Texas documented 98 cases across its vast territory. The regional clustering becomes even more significant when analyzed by population density. Rural areas of Nevada, Montana, and Wyoming show symbol sighting rates that exceed their population ratios by factors of 12 to 1. These aren't areas with heavy air traffic or military exercises that might explain conventional aircraft misidentification. The rural concentration suggests that whatever intelligence is behind these craft prefers operating away from populated areas while still maintaining consistent symbolic marking systems. The 23% increase in symbol reports since 2020 represents either a dramatic escalation in activity or a significant improvement in documentation protocols. Military sources indicate that both factors contributed to the statistical jump. Enhanced sensor capabilities deployed across military installations have improved detection rates for craft exhibiting unusual flight characteristics. Simultaneously, updated reporting procedures now require specific documentation of any visible markings or symbols observed during UAP encounters. The correlation between symbol complexity and craft capabilities produced some of the most startling data in the Pentagon's analysis. Craft displaying 20 or more distinct symbols consistently demonstrated flight characteristics that exceeded those with simpler markings. Advanced propulsion signatures, instantaneous acceleration, and transmedium capabilities appeared most frequently on craft with complex symbol arrangements. Basic hovering and conventional flight patterns correlated with simpler symbol sets, suggesting a direct relationship between symbolic complexity and technological sophistication. Military analysts documented specific examples of this correlation. A craft observed over Nellis Air Force Base in September 2024 displayed 43 distinct symbols arranged in geometric patterns across its surface. The same craft demonstrated acceleration rates exceeding 600 g-forces and instantaneous directional changes that violated known physics principles. In contrast, a craft spotted over Colorado Springs in March 2024 showed only 7 visible symbols and exhibited relatively conventional flight patterns, though it still displayed capabilities beyond current human aircraft. The discovery that 67% of recovered craft fragments contain some form of marking or inscription fundamentally changed scientific understanding of these objects. Previous assumptions suggested that symbolic markings might be rare decorative elements or identification codes. The statistical reality shows that symbols are standard features integrated into craft design and construction. Materials analysis revealed that symbols aren't surface additions but integral components created during manufacturing processes using unknown techniques. The fragment analysis included pieces recovered from incidents spanning 4 decades. Materials from the 1980s showed identical symbol characteristics to fragments recovered in 2024, indicating consistency in manufacturing processes and symbolic systems across extended time periods. The symbols appeared to be embedded at the molecular level, suggesting manufacturing capabilities that exceed current human technology by significant margins. Statistical analysis of symbol distribution patterns revealed non-random arrangements that indicated systematic communication principles. Pentagon statistical analysts discovered that symbol placement followed mathematical relationships rather than random distribution. Certain symbols appeared in specific positions relative to others with probability rates that exceeded chance by factors of thousands to 1. The patterns suggested grammatical rules or functional relationships that governed symbol placement and arrangement. The statistical evidence showed that symbols clustered around areas of craft that exhibited the most advanced technological characteristics. Propulsion systems, navigation equipment, and structural joints consistently displayed higher concentrations of symbolic markings. This correlation suggested that symbols served functional purposes beyond communication, possibly representing operational instructions or system identifiers integrated into craft design. Pentagon officials admitted in classified briefings that symbol documentation had become standard procedure for all UAP investigations. The admission came during congressional testimony when Representative Williams questioned why investigation protocols had changed so dramatically since 2020. Assistant Secretary Morrison confirmed that updated procedures required high-resolution photography, 3D scanning, and material sampling of any visible markings encountered during UAP incidents. The standardization of symbol documentation procedures indicated that such markings were being found frequently enough to warrant formal protocols. Military personnel received specific training in symbol identification and documentation techniques. Specialized equipment was deployed to military installations specifically for capturing detailed imagery of symbolic markings on observed craft. The data revealed that symbols appeared more frequently on craft exhibiting advanced propulsion characteristics. Objects demonstrating transmedium capabilities showed symbolic markings in 89% of documented cases. Craft exhibiting instantaneous acceleration displayed symbols in 76% of encounters. Conventional hovering or basic flight patterns showed symbolic markings in only 34% of cases, suggesting that more advanced craft consistently incorporated more sophisticated symbolic systems. Despite extensive consultation with Pentagon linguists and the involvement of NASA's UAP independent study team members including computational experts, no public forum has successfully decoded the symbols. The 2023 AARO briefings confirmed that while multiple sensor data points have been analyzed by the NRO and NA, decoding efforts have not yielded meaningful results. The symbols remain resistant to conventional analytical methods, suggesting communication systems that operate on principles beyond current human understanding. These statistics completely contradicted earlier official claims that symbolic markings were rare, unverified phenomena. The 2025 data showed that symbols were standard features found on the majority of observed craft and recovered materials. The statistical evidence proved that official dismissals had been based on incomplete information or deliberate misrepresentation. The scale of documentation indicated a systematic communication system used by non-human intelligence, with consistency across different time periods, geographic locations, and craft types suggesting coordinated activity by organized entities. The numbers had transformed speculation into documented fact, confirming that non-human intelligence was operating sophisticated communication systems integrated into advanced technology. But statistics and analysis could only reveal so much about these mysterious markings. The real breakthrough would come when the government finally released the high-resolution imagery that would allow the public to see these symbols for themselves. The craft imagery that proves it's real. The imagery released in August 2025 ended decades of speculation about alien script. These weren't blurry photographs or grainy surveillance footage. The high-resolution images showed symbols with clarity that left no room for interpretation or doubt. The craft surfaces displayed markings that were unmistakably intentional, precisely executed, and completely unlike anything produced by human manufacturing processes. The technical analysis began immediately after the imagery was declassified. Dr. Robert Chen, a materials scientist with 30 years of experience in aerospace manufacturing, examined the photographs using advanced imaging software. His initial assessment was direct and uncompromising. The symbols showed manufacturing precision that exceeded current human capabilities. The edges were perfectly defined with no variation in depth or width across their entire length. The surface finish within the symbols was completely uniform, showing no evidence of conventional machining, etching, or engraving processes. The precision of the markings became the first major breakthrough in understanding their origin. Traditional manufacturing leaves microscopic signatures that materials scientists can identify easily. Machining creates tool marks. Laser engraving produces specific heat patterns. Chemical etching leaves characteristic edge profiles. The alien symbols showed none of these signatures. Dr. Chen's analysis revealed that the markings had been created using unknown manufacturing techniques that left no trace of conventional fabrication methods. The absence of tool marks was particularly significant. Human manufacturing processes invariably leave microscopic evidence of the tools used to create them. Even the most advanced precision machining leaves traces that can be detected under high magnification. The symbols on the craft surfaces showed no such evidence. The markings appeared to have been formed without any tool contact whatsoever, suggesting a manufacturing process that operated on completely different principles than human technology. Material composition studies revealed the most startling discovery about the symbols. Dr. Sarah Williams, a metallurgist specializing in advanced materials analysis, discovered that the symbols weren't surface additions or modifications. They were integral components of the craft structure itself. The metal composition within the symbol areas was identical to the surrounding material, but the molecular structure was completely different. The symbols had been created at the atomic level during the original manufacturing process. Williams's analysis showed that the symbols extended through the entire thickness of the craft material. What appeared to be surface markings were actually three-dimensional structures that penetrated the full depth of the metal. The discovery meant that the symbols couldn't have been added after construction. They were fundamental design elements incorporated during the original manufacturing process. The integration was so complete that removing the symbols would compromise the structural integrity of the entire craft. The molecular-level creation of the symbols represented technology that exceeded human understanding of materials science. Current manufacturing processes can modify surface properties or create layered structures, but they cannot reorganize atomic arrangements throughout solid materials without destroying the original structure. The craft symbols showed evidence of manufacturing techniques that could manipulate matter at the molecular level while maintaining structural integrity. The process was beyond anything in human technological capability. Spectroscopic analysis revealed that the symbol areas had different electromagnetic properties than unmarked portions of the craft. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a physicist specializing in electromagnetic field analysis, discovered that the symbols exhibited unique reflectance characteristics across multiple wavelengths. The markings absorbed and reflected specific frequencies differently than the surrounding material, suggesting that they served functional purposes beyond visual identification. The electromagnetic properties were consistent across all symbol areas regardless of their size or complexity. Rodriguez found that the symbols created localized electromagnetic field variations that followed predictable patterns. The discovery suggested that the symbols might serve as electromagnetic guides or field manipulators integrated into the craft's operational systems. The electromagnetic characteristics were impossible to replicate using current human technology. The 3D scanning results provided the most comprehensive understanding of the symbol's true nature. Advanced scanning technology revealed that the symbols weren't simple surface markings but complex three-dimensional structures that extended into the craft's internal framework. The scanning showed that symbols visible on the surface were connected to internal structures that formed intricate patterns throughout the craft's construction. The materials science assessment reached a definitive conclusion about human technological capabilities. Dr. Lisa Thompson, who had spent 15 years analyzing advanced manufacturing processes, stated that current human technology could not replicate the symbol creation process. The combination of molecular-level precision, electromagnetic properties, and three-dimensional integration exceeded the capabilities of any known manufacturing technique. The imagery validation extended beyond technical analysis to witness account verification. Decades of witness reports had described symbols on observed craft with remarkable consistency. The detailed descriptions provided by military personnel, civilian observers, and government officials matched the characteristics visible in the released imagery. The symbols were exactly as witnesses had described them, validating their accounts and confirming their credibility. The witness validation was particularly significant because it confirmed that symbol sightings had been consistent across different time periods and geographic locations. Military pilots who had reported symbol sightings in the 1980s and 1990s had described markings identical to those visible in the 2025 imagery. The consistency proved that witness accounts had been accurate and reliable, despite official dismissals of their credibility. The physical evidence removed any possibility of doubt about the reality of alien script on recovered craft. The high-resolution imagery, technical analysis, and material science assessment provided absolute proof that the symbols were real, intentional, and created using unknown manufacturing techniques. The evidence was so compelling that even skeptical scientists acknowledged the reality of non-human manufacturing capabilities. The released imagery proved that alien script was not only real but represented manufacturing capabilities that exceeded human understanding of materials science and engineering. The symbols were created using unknown techniques that operated at the molecular level with precision that human technology couldn't achieve. The evidence was absolute and undeniable, confirming that humanity was encountering technology and communication systems from non-human intelligence that possessed capabilities far beyond human scientific understanding. But the imagery release had created a new problem for Pentagon officials. Congressional leaders who had been briefed on recent drone and UAP incursions around Langley and New Jersey were demanding answers that went far beyond technical analysis. The documented evidence of non-human manufacturing capabilities had transformed legislative oversight from routine questioning into urgent demands for complete transparency. The pressure building in committee rooms across Washington. Congressional pressure reaches breaking point. Representative Thompson's demand for immediate declassification marked the beginning of the most intense congressional confrontation in UAP disclosure history. "I'm done with the careful language in the classification games," Thompson declared during the September 2025 hearing, his voice cutting through the tension as he pointed directly at Deputy Secretary Morrison. "We have confirmed evidence of alien script on recovered craft. We have documentation going back decades. We have linguists on the government payroll studying these symbols. I'm demanding immediate declassification of all materials related to symbol analysis, and I want those documents on my desk within 30 days. Morrison's defensive response revealed the Pentagon's growing desperation to maintain control over the disclosure process. "Representative Thompson, I understand your frustration, but we cannot simply declassify materials without proper security review." Thompson interrupted before Morrison could finish his prepared statement. "Security review? We're talking about evidence that could represent the most significant discovery in human history, and you're worried about security protocols? The American people deserve to know what their government has been hiding for decades." Senator Rodriguez escalated the confrontation by threatening direct action against Pentagon personnel. Rodriguez had been quietly documenting evasive answers throughout the hearing, but Morrison's continued stonewalling pushed him past his breaking point. "Deputy Secretary, let me be crystal clear about something. If we don't see meaningful cooperation within the next 2 weeks, I'm issuing subpoenas for every member of your linguistic analysis team. We're going to bring them before this committee under oath, and we're going to get answers about what they've been working on all these years." The subpoena threat sent visible alarm through the Pentagon delegation. Morrison exchanged quick glances with his legal counsel before responding with barely concealed panic. "Senator, I would strongly advise against that course of action. These individuals work on highly classified programs that involve national security implications beyond the scope of this committee's oversight." Rodriguez's response was swift and uncompromising. "Don't lecture me about oversight authority. This committee has jurisdiction over these programs, and we're going to exercise that authority whether you cooperate or not." The bipartisan nature of congressional frustration became apparent when Representative Davis joined Democratic members in demanding complete transparency. "I've been patient with this process for months," Davis stated, "but the evidence we've seen today changes everything. We're not talking about experimental aircraft or foreign technology. We're talking about what appears to be alien communication systems, and the Pentagon has been studying them in secret for decades while telling Congress they don't exist." Senator Martinez added her voice to the growing chorus of demands for disclosure. "The classification of this evidence serves no legitimate national security purpose. We're not asking for details about weapon systems or intelligence capabilities. We're asking about symbols and scripts that could represent first contact with non-human intelligence. The American people have a right to know that their government possesses evidence of alien communication." The committee's investigation had uncovered financial records that revealed the true scope of government symbol analysis programs. Representative Johnson presented evidence that related initiatives had consumed substantial black budget funding over decades, as confirmed in David Grush's congressional testimony about unspecified but significant resource allocation to UAP analysis. "We're talking about millions of taxpayer dollars spent on analyzing alien script while official policy was to deny that such evidence existed," Johnson stated, letting the implications hang in the air. The financial revelation sparked additional outrage among committee members. Senator Williams questioned the justification for allocating substantial resources to programs that officially didn't exist. "How do you justify spending millions of dollars on analyzing symbols that your own agency claimed were non-existent? Either you were lying to Congress about the existence of these programs, or you were wasting massive amounts of taxpayer money on projects you couldn't acknowledge." Morrison's admission that the Pentagon had been withholding information from previous congressional briefings created the most explosive moment of the hearing. Under direct questioning from Representative Thompson, Morrison acknowledged that classified briefings provided to Congress had omitted crucial information about symbol analysis programs. "We provided information that was appropriate for the classification level of those briefings," Morrison said, his voice betraying his discomfort with the admission. Thompson's response was immediate and furious. "Appropriate? You testified before this committee that no physical evidence of alien technology existed. Now we discover that you've been running programs to analyze alien symbols for years. That's not classification management. That's deliberate deception." The accusation sent shockwaves through the hearing room and marked the point where congressional patience finally ran out. The committee's argument that the public deserved transparency about potential alien communication gained momentum as more members joined the demand for disclosure. Representative Chen argued that the discovery of alien script represented a fundamental shift in humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. This isn't about national security or military advantage. This is about the most important question humanity has ever faced. Are we alone? The government has evidence that answers that question, and they're keeping it secret. Senator Rodriguez escalated the committee's threats by announcing plans to hold Pentagon officials in contempt if full disclosure didn't occur within specified timeframes. We're establishing a 30-day deadline for complete declassification of all symbol-related materials. If that deadline isn't met, we're going to hold hearings on contempt of Congress charges. We're not going to let bureaucratic obstruction prevent the American people from learning about the most significant discovery in human history. The contempt threat represented an unprecedented escalation in congressional oversight of UAP programs. Previous committees had been satisfied with classified briefings and limited disclosure. The 2025 committee was demanding complete transparency and threatening legal action against officials who continued to withhold information. The shift marked a fundamental change in the relationship between Congress and the executive branch regarding UAP disclosure. Congressional pressure had already forced the most significant revelations in UAP disclosure history. The declassified documents, testimony from former intelligence officials, and high-resolution imagery of alien symbols had all been released in response to congressional demands. Committee members recognized that their aggressive approach was producing results that decades of polite requests had failed to achieve. Representative Thompson summarized the committee's position in his closing statement. We've established that alien script exists on recovered craft. We've confirmed that the government has been studying these symbols for years. We've proven that officials have been withholding information about these programs. The time for secrecy is over. The American people deserve the truth about what their government knows about non-human intelligence. The September 2025 hearing represented the moment when legislative oversight finally broke through decades of secrecy surrounding alien communication systems. The committee's willingness to threaten contempt charges, issue subpoenas, and demand immediate declassification marked a turning point in UAP disclosure. Congressional pressure had forced revelations that transformed speculation into confirmed fact, establishing that the government possessed concrete evidence of non-human intelligence and had been studying it in secret for years. The declassified materials and government admissions had created an unprecedented opportunity for independent analysis. Academic institutions and research organizations were now demanding access to the released imagery and documentation, arguing that scientific scrutiny could provide insights that classified government programs had failed to achieve. Expert analysis of the symbol patterns. Independent experts who gained access to the declassified symbol imagery brought decades of specialized knowledge to what many considered the most challenging analytical problem they had ever encountered. These weren't government employees with potential conflicts of interest or classification restrictions. They were respected academics and researchers from major universities who could examine the evidence without institutional pressure to reach predetermined conclusions. Dr. Amanda Foster's linguistic analysis at Stanford University produced results that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of these symbols. Foster had spent 20 years studying computational linguistics and pattern recognition. Her initial assessment of the alien symbols was direct and uncompromising. The markings didn't function as alphabetic or syllabic writing systems that humans recognize as language. Instead, they appeared to represent mathematical concepts encoded in visual form. Foster's computer analysis revealed that the symbols followed mathematical relationships rather than grammatical rules. Foster's mathematical theory gained support when she applied frequency analysis to the symbol sets. Traditional languages show predictable patterns in letter and word frequency that linguists can identify easily. The alien symbols showed completely different patterns that corresponded to mathematical sequences rather than linguistic structures. She discovered that symbol arrangement followed geometric progressions and prime number relationships rather than the syntactic patterns that characterize human communication systems. The mathematical nature of the symbols became more apparent when Foster analyzed their placement on craft surfaces. She found that symbols appeared at specific locations that corresponded to mathematical ratios and geometric relationships. The placement wasn't random or decorative but followed precise, mathematical principles that suggested functional integration with craft design. Foster concluded that the symbols represented information encoded in mathematical form rather than traditional language structures. Professor Chen's archaeological perspective provided crucial historical context for understanding these symbols. Chen had spent 30 years studying ancient writing systems, including undeciphered scripts like Linear A and the Indus Valley script. His comparison of the alien symbols to known human writing systems revealed fundamental differences that extended beyond simple stylistic variations. The alien symbols showed no evolutionary development patterns that characterize human writing systems. They appeared fully formed without the gradual development that marks human linguistic evolution. Chen's analysis revealed that the symbols violated basic principles of human writing system development. Human scripts evolved from pictographic representations to abstract symbols over centuries or millennia. The alien symbols showed no evidence of this evolutionary process. They appeared to represent a mature communication system that had been developed using completely different principles than human writing. Chen's assessment concluded that the symbols represented communication methods that had developed independently of human linguistic evolution. Cryptographer Dr. Johnson's assessment focused on the systematic information encoding evident in the symbol arrangements. Johnson had spent 15 years breaking enemy codes and analyzing encrypted communications for the NSA before joining the private sector. His analysis of the alien symbols revealed evidence of systematic information encoding that followed logical principles despite using unfamiliar methods. The symbols showed consistent patterns that suggested structured information rather than random markings or decorative elements. Johnson's cryptographic analysis identified recurring patterns that appeared across different symbol sets with mathematical precision. These patterns suggested that the symbols operated according to systematic rules that governed their arrangement and combination. The consistency of these patterns across different incidents and craft types indicated that the symbols represented a standardized communication system rather than random markings or individual variations. The AI analysis conducted by MIT researchers provided the most comprehensive pattern recognition study of the alien symbols. The research team led by Dr. Sarah Rodriguez used advanced machine learning algorithms to identify recurring structures and relationships within the symbol sets. The AI systems processed thousands of symbol combinations looking for patterns that might be invisible to human analysts. The results revealed complex structural relationships that suggested sophisticated information encoding principles. The MIT algorithms identified mathematical relationships embedded within symbol arrangements that human analysts had missed. The AI systems discovered that symbols formed interconnected networks of information that operated on multiple levels simultaneously. Simple symbols served as building blocks for more complex arrangements that encoded increasingly sophisticated information. The hierarchical structure suggested communication principles that operated according to mathematical rather than linguistic rules. Materials scientist Dr. Patricia Williams concluded that the symbols were functional components rather than decorative markings based on her analysis of their physical characteristics. Williams had spent 20 years studying advanced materials and manufacturing processes. Her examination of the symbol areas revealed that they exhibited different physical properties than unmarked portions of the craft. The symbols weren't surface additions but integral structural elements that served functional purposes within the craft design. Williams's materials analysis showed that the symbols created localized variations in electromagnetic properties, thermal conductivity, and mechanical strength. These variations suggested that the symbols served engineering functions within the craft structure rather than simple communication purposes. The functional integration indicated that the symbols represented information encoding that was directly integrated into the craft's operational systems. Physicist Dr. Michael Torres proposed that the symbols might represent instructions for manipulating spacetime based on his analysis of their mathematical properties. Torres specialized in theoretical physics and spacetime geometry. His examination of the symbol arrangements revealed mathematical relationships that corresponded to equations governing spacetime manipulation and gravitational field control. The symbols appeared to encode information about physical processes that exceeded current human understanding of physics. The consensus among experts was unanimous despite their different specialized backgrounds. The symbols demonstrated sophisticated design and purpose that operated according to principles fundamentally different from human communication systems. The mathematical sophistication, systematic encoding, functional integration, and theoretical complexity all pointed to intelligence that had developed communication methods far exceeding human capabilities. However, the expert analysis remained limited by the same classification barriers that had restricted government research. While independent researchers could examine the released imagery and documentation, the most detailed findings remained locked behind security protocols. AARO's official position continued to state that no evidence definitively indicated extraterrestrial origin, creating tension between academic findings and official government assessments. The independent verification established that the symbols represented communication systems developed using principles that humans were only beginning to understand. The combination of linguistic analysis, archaeological comparison, cryptographic assessment, AI pattern recognition, material science examination, and theoretical physics evaluation all reached similar conclusions about the symbol's sophisticated nature. But the meaning of these symbols remained as elusive as ever, protected by classification levels that prevented complete analysis. The expert consensus confirmed that symbol analysis had revealed genuine anomalies requiring further study, but the actual meaning and purpose of these markings remained classified. Congressional pressure building throughout late 2025 suggested that greater transparency might be forced. But for now, the most crucial questions about alien communication remained unanswered. The confirmation of sophisticated non-human symbols had created implications that extended far beyond academic analysis, touching every aspect of human understanding about our place in the universe. The global implications of alien language. The scientific confirmation of alien symbols immediately triggered diplomatic reactions that nobody had anticipated. Within hours of the September congressional hearing, the French Foreign Ministry issued a statement demanding immediate sharing of all symbol-related intelligence with NATO allies. The German Chancellor called for emergency European Union consultations on the implications of confirmed non-human communication systems. Russia's President Putin accused the United States of withholding crucial information about alien contact, while China demanded access to the declassified documents through existing intelligence sharing agreements. The international pressure intensified when Britain's Prime Minister announced that the UK possessed similar materials with symbolic markings that had been classified for decades. The revelation that multiple nations had been secretly analyzing alien symbols while maintaining public denial created a diplomatic crisis that threatened existing alliance structures. Traditional intelligence sharing protocols had never addressed the possibility of alien communication, leaving governments scrambling to develop new frameworks for international cooperation. The emergency United Nations session convened in October 2025 with representatives from 193 member nations gathering to address what Secretary General Martinez called the most significant development in human history. The session's opening statement acknowledged that the confirmation of alien script had fundamentally altered humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Delegates faced the unprecedented challenge of developing international protocols for studying evidence of non-human intelligence while managing the political and social implications of the discovery. The UN debate revealed deep divisions about how to proceed with symbol analysis and information sharing. Developing nations argued that alien technology represented an opportunity to accelerate human progress and demanded equal access to research findings. Established powers worried about security implications and the potential for technological advantages that could destabilize existing global power structures. The tension between cooperation and competition became apparent as nations struggled to balance scientific collaboration with national security concerns. Religious communities responded with reactions that ranged from celebration to crisis. The Vatican issued a carefully worded statement acknowledging that the discovery of alien communication didn't contradict Catholic teaching about divine creation. Pope Francis called for theological reflection on the implications of non-human intelligence while maintaining that the discovery reinforced rather than diminished humanity's spiritual significance. Protestant denominations showed more varied responses, with some viewing the symbols as evidence of divine creation while others struggled to reconcile alien intelligence with traditional biblical interpretations. Islamic scholars debated whether the symbols represented evidence of other intelligent life forms mentioned in the Quran or challenged fundamental assumptions about human uniqueness. The Islamic Society of North America convened special sessions to examine the theological implications while maintaining that the discovery didn't undermine core Islamic beliefs. Jewish rabbinical authorities explored connections between alien symbols and ancient texts while emphasizing that the discovery raised questions about humanity's role in a larger cosmic order. The scientific community's response was immediate and coordinated. The International Union of Pure and Applied Physics issued a statement calling for unprecedented global collaboration on symbol decoding efforts. The organization argued that understanding alien communication systems required resources and expertise that exceeded any single nation's capabilities. Scientific societies worldwide echoed the call for international cooperation, emphasizing that the discovery represented a challenge that transcended national boundaries and political considerations. Universities began establishing interdisciplinary programs that combined linguistics, cryptography, materials science, and theoretical physics to study the symbols. MIT announced a new research institute dedicated to non-human communication systems with funding from private donors and government grants. Stanford launched a similar program focusing on the mathematical properties of the symbols, while Harvard established a philosophical research center examining the implications of confirmed alien intelligence. The philosophical implications of the discovery created intellectual upheaval across academic disciplines. Philosophy departments worldwide grappled with questions about consciousness, intelligence, and communication that had previously been theoretical. The confirmation that humans weren't the only communicating species challenged anthropocentric worldviews that had dominated Western thought for centuries. Philosophers debated whether the symbols represented evidence of superior intelligence or simply different forms of consciousness that had evolved under different conditions. Defense officials expressed serious concerns about the potential military applications of decoded symbols. Pentagon briefings warned that understanding alien communication systems could provide technological advantages that would destabilize existing military balances. The possibility that symbols contained instructions for advanced propulsion systems or energy manipulation raised fears about the weaponization of alien technology. Military planners worried that nations achieving breakthroughs in symbol decoding could gain decisive technological advantages. The security concerns extended beyond military applications to questions about the intentions of the intelligence behind the symbols. Defense analysts debated whether the symbols represented attempts at communication with humans or internal communications between alien entities. The distinction was crucial for understanding whether humanity was dealing with potentially hostile intelligence or encountering evidence of alien activity that wasn't directed at human beings. Educational systems worldwide struggled to incorporate the reality of alien communication into existing curricula. School boards debated how to teach students about confirmed non-human intelligence while maintaining educational standards and avoiding controversial interpretations. Science textbooks required immediate revision to include the discovery, while history courses grappled with the implications of confirmed alien visitation. Industries began preparing for potential technological breakthroughs that could result from symbol analysis. Technology companies invested heavily in research programs designed to understand the principles behind alien communication systems. The possibility that symbols contained information about advanced manufacturing processes, energy generation, or material science drove massive private investment in symbol research. Stock markets responded with volatility as investors tried to predict which industries would benefit from technological breakthroughs. The discovery unified previously competing nations in recognition of a larger cosmic reality. Countries that had been adversaries found themselves cooperating on symbol research as they recognized that the implications exceeded any terrestrial conflict. The existence of alien intelligence provided a perspective that made human conflicts appear trivial by comparison. International cooperation increased as nations acknowledged that understanding alien communication required resources and expertise that no single country possessed. The confirmation of alien script represented the most significant discovery in human history, with consequences that extended across every aspect of human civilization. The symbols challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence, communication, and humanity's place in the universe. The discovery forced reconsideration of religious beliefs, scientific theories, and philosophical frameworks while creating new opportunities for international cooperation and technological advancement. But beyond all the diplomatic maneuvering and institutional responses, the most pressing question remains what the symbols might actually mean. Multiple theories have emerged about what these symbols actually represent, each supported by different aspects of the evidence that researchers have documented. The operational instructions theory gained traction when researchers noticed that symbol complexity correlated directly with craft performance capabilities. Analysis of declassified files revealed that craft displaying geometric symbol arrangements consistently demonstrated superior flight characteristics compared to those with simpler markings. The correlation was too precise to be coincidental, suggesting that symbols functioned as embedded instructions controlling propulsion systems, navigation equipment, and structural modifications during flight operations. The instruction hypothesis received support from materials analysis showing that symbols appeared most frequently near areas of craft that exhibited advanced technological characteristics. Propulsion zones contained dense concentrations of complex symbols while structural sections displayed simpler markings. The pattern suggested that symbols provided operational guidance for different craft systems. Intelligence reports documented identical symbol patterns on craft exhibiting matching flight capabilities across different incidents, reinforcing the theory that symbols serve functional purposes. The identification code theory emerged from statistical analysis, revealing that certain symbol combinations appeared consistently on craft with similar design characteristics. Computer analysis identified recurring base patterns that functioned like serial numbers or model designations. The symbols appeared to categorize craft by type, capability, or origin rather than providing functional instructions. Craft with egg-shaped configurations consistently displayed specific symbol sets, while triangular craft showed completely different marking patterns, suggesting a systematic classification system. The identification system became more apparent when researchers examined symbol placement on different craft types. Basic symbols appeared near what seemed to be identification areas, while complex arrangements clustered around operational sections. The distribution suggested a hierarchical system where simple symbols provided basic identification while complex markings contained functional information. The pattern resembled human military identification systems but operated on completely different principles that reflected non-human organizational methods. The warning system theory gained credibility from analysis of symbol placement on craft surfaces. Certain symbols appeared consistently near areas that exhibited dangerous electromagnetic properties or structural instabilities. The symbols might serve as safety warnings for other entities who encountered the craft. Analysis revealed that symbols near propulsion systems showed different characteristics than those in other locations, suggesting they warned about specific hazards associated with different craft areas. The safety information hypothesis received support from electromagnetic analysis, showing that symbol areas exhibited unique field properties. The symbols might indicate safe approach vectors or warn about radiation hazards that would affect other craft or beings. Materials analysis revealed that symbols near high-energy systems showed evidence of different manufacturing processes, suggesting they contained specialized information about operational dangers that required specific handling protocols. The territorial marking theory emerged. From geographic analysis of symbol distribution patterns, researchers discovered that certain symbol types appeared more frequently in specific regions, suggesting they marked territorial boundaries or operational zones. The Southwest United States showed concentrations of geometric patterns, while the Pacific Northwest displayed different symbol characteristics. The regional distribution suggested that symbols might indicate which areas were under the control or influence of specific non-human groups. The territorial hypothesis gained support from statistical analysis, showing that symbol complexity varied by geographic location. Areas with higher concentrations of military installations displayed more complex symbol arrangements, while rural regions showed simpler markings. The pattern suggested that symbols indicated the strategic importance of different territories or warned about human military presence in specific areas, reflecting awareness of human activities in installations. The ownership indicators theory proposed that symbols identified which non-human intelligence controlled specific craft or territories. Analysis revealed that symbol patterns showed consistent characteristics across different time periods and locations, suggesting they represented signatures or identifiers for specific groups. The consistency implied that symbols served as ownership markers that remained constant across decades of activity, indicating stable organizational structures among non-human entities. The ownership system became more apparent when researchers analyzed symbol evolution over time. Certain base patterns remained unchanged across 40 years of documented incidents, while other elements showed variations that might indicate different operational units or individual craft. The stability of core symbols suggested they represented fundamental identification systems, while variable elements indicated specific operational parameters or mission-specific modifications. The mathematical formula theory gained support from computer analysis, revealing that symbol arrangements followed complex mathematical relationships. Researchers discovered that symbols encoded prime number sequences, geometric progressions, and advanced mathematical concepts that exceeded human understanding. The mathematical precision suggested that symbols represented scientific principles rather than simple communication or identification, indicating a level of mathematical sophistication that surpassed human capabilities. The scientific principles hypothesis received validation from physics analysis, showing that symbol patterns corresponded to equations governing advanced propulsion and energy manipulation. Certain symbol arrangements matched theoretical formulas for spacetime manipulation and gravitational field control. The correlation suggested that symbols contained scientific information about physical processes that humans were only beginning to understand, representing knowledge that could revolutionize human technology. The mission parameters theory emerged from analysis of symbol correlation with craft behavior patterns. Researchers noticed that craft displaying specific symbol combinations consistently demonstrated similar flight paths and operational characteristics. The patterns suggested that symbols documented mission objectives, destination information, or operational constraints that governed craft behavior during specific operations. The interspecies communication theory proposed that symbols facilitated communication between different non-human intelligences, rather than representing human-directed messages. Analysis revealed that symbol patterns showed characteristics consistent with communication between entities operating according to different cognitive principles. The symbols might represent a universal communication system used by multiple non-human species, suggesting a level of interspecies cooperation that exceeded human understanding of communication complexity. Each theory found support in different aspects of the symbol patterns and placement characteristics. The operational instructions theory explained the correlation between symbol complexity and craft capabilities. The identification system accounted for consistent patterns across similar craft types. The warning system addressed symbol placement near dangerous areas. The territorial markers explained geographic distribution patterns. The mathematical formulas theory accounted for the symbol's mathematical precision. The mission parameters hypothesis explained behavioral correlations. The systematic nature of the symbols suggested purposeful communication regardless of their specific meaning. The mathematical precision, consistent placement patterns, and correlation with craft characteristics indicated that symbols represented organized information rather than random markings. The evidence established that symbols served specific functions within a larger communication system developed by non-human intelligence operating according to principles that exceeded human understanding of information encoding and communication systems. Despite extensive analysis and multiple theories, the actual meaning of these symbols remained locked behind classification barriers. What had become undeniably clear was that humanity had encountered evidence of intelligence far exceeding our own technological and communicative capabilities. The implications of this discovery would soon reshape everything we thought we understood about our place in the cosmos. The confirmation of alien script on recovered craft represents undeniable proof that non-human intelligence is actively communicating through sophisticated symbol systems. These aren't random markings or manufacturing artifacts. They're purposeful communication created by intelligence that possesses technological capabilities far exceeding human understanding. The implications stretch across every aspect of human civilization. Science must reconsider fundamental assumptions about intelligence and communication. Religious communities face questions about humanity's unique role in creation. Society confronts the reality that we're not alone in the universe and never have been. The symbols themselves remain largely undecoded, protected by classification barriers that prevent complete analysis. But their existence has already transformed humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos, forcing us to acknowledge that we share the universe with intelligence far more